Hello, I'm Dr. Sam Hancock of the Emerald Planet and Emerald Planet TV. We come to you on a week-to-week basis from Washington, D.C. in the United States as we look around the globe in 144 different nations, looking for those 1,000 best practices, the technology, services, and products that are making a difference as we move through the 21st century. And as we have a planet of 9 billion people by 2038 and possibly 12 to 13 billion by the end of this century, how are we going to be able to take care of all these people on planet Earth? And that's what Emerald Planet's all about. We come to you looking at the solutions, the best practices from around the globe as we create the Emerald Planet. Hello, welcome to the Emerald Planet. We're making a difference as we move through the 21st century. And seeing the long-term impacts of climate change. We're glad to have you. Thank you for being with us.
Welcome to the Emerald Planet TV. We're talking about the Monarch Sister Schools program, and this is sponsored through Natural Partners and the Emerald Planet International Foundation, and the Emerald Planet TV are certainly partners in this program, and I'm also on the board with Natural Partners. But we have William H. Bill Dent, who is Executive Director of Natural Partners, co-chair of Trees for the Capital, and also he works very closely and Executive Director with the Monarch Sister Schools program. So Bill, welcome back to the Emerald Planet TV.
Dr. Sam, it's always a pleasure. Great to be here.
Now, looking at the monarchs themselves, they really are, as they say, the poster child as far as pollinators. But tell us, what is a pollinator, and why would this number of children, parents, teachers go out in the dirt, start digging around, get all dirty, being outside for a pollinator?
Okay, first of all, pollinators. Well over half of our food relies on not only bees, but butterflies, even hummingbirds are pollinators. They manage to physically move pollen from one part of a plant to another plant in the same species and provide the pollination. Without the pollination, you wouldn't have your apples and pears, for example, right? So, or your squash, and so on and so forth. So pollination is very important for us human beings. The monarch butterfly also from the flowers gets nectar, and that's what fuels them.
Now, looking at what we're looking at here, as far as the parents, the students, the teachers getting involved, looking at the STEM and the STEAM, let's define what those two terms are if we can, Bill. And again, why is it so important to have these monarch butterfly gardens?
All right. They're important for people, the students, and they're important for the butterflies and other pollinators. Why are they important for people? First of all, the gardens are a great way of connecting the kids with nature. Many kids these days, playing the video games or on their devices, and they just don't have the contact with nature that our generation, Dr. Sam, had. I used to be out in the woods. All right. For the pollinators, we've planted over 50 gardens so far between the U.S. and Mexico, and they provide the natural habitat. All the plants that go into our gardens are native plants. Okay, and native plants serve native pollinators, and the pollinators need habitat, and we need the pollinators for our food. So it's all kind of a web of life,
Now, looking at the children and the teachers that we're seeing here, and I think there's a couple of parents as well, why is it so important to have them out in nature to actually be establishing these pollinator gardens and be a part of that process? Because by the time all these plants mature, they're going to be up in the upper grades, maybe even have graduated from school.
Yeah, what we do plant are perennials, which will come back every year. The milkweed is also a perennial and has beautiful flowers. But the kids, usually we just don't plant a pollinator garden. We also plant a vegetable garden. So it's a way of letting them know where their food comes from, what the plants look like, and having the satisfaction of actually producing some food. And usually that food is used at the school.
I was going to say the amazing part about that is actually the cafeterias now are taking that produce that the students are actually growing and putting it in their lunches or even for some of the breakfasts.
Exactly. So you can only imagine it gives the kids a totally different perspective on what they're eating, and it encourages better nutrition because then they get more interested in eating the veggies, the
Now,
famous veggies.
one of the things too about having the children involved, as we see here, it is physical activity, and understand that this is something that's very important as far as physical education and incorporating this in the broader curricula. So they're actually getting fresh air, they're outdoors, they're getting some sunshine, but actually physical activity that many of the children were not getting for many years.
Yes, the physical activity is important, and also it breaks down a mental barrier between them and the world outside. So
Mhm.
of course,
Now, looking at them handling shovels and being involved in very manual labor, getting dirty, in other words, why is that so important that they've learned these skills? These are very simple skills, but yet this is something probably they'll carry through to the rest of their lives.
yeah, I would argue that it helps build self-confidence. Uh, we really believe a lot in learning by doing. So they're learning by doing. I mean, it's not somebody lecturing at them. They're actually planting a plant. They're watching it grow. They're taking care. They're doing the weeding, the watering. Okay. We usually have them put signs. What is it that they've planted in the pollinator gardens? We even have a stakeholder idea where each child will adopt a plant, put their name on one side of a little stake, and the name of the plant on the other side.
Now, these gardens are actually quite lovely, and looking at the aesthetics of these, how does this actually reach out to the greater community beyond the students, the parents, and the children themselves, and involve the community?
Yeah, well, for starters, the parents, and we try to put the gardens close to the entrance where when the parents drop their children off, they can accompany the progress of the garden. And with the signage this particular garden doesn't have signage, but the signage I was describing, that also has an educational value and ties in with the arts part that I'll be talking about in a little while.
Now, looking at the garden that we have here in front of us, is this incorporating both the pollinator garden and vegetable garden? Because I see
No,
it looks like some ornamentals that are in here as
this
well.
is just a pollinator garden.
Okay, that's
Yeah,
what I thought.
it was
Because
an
they
inner city school. They weren't interested in doing the vegetable garden at that point.
getting parents involved. Why is that so important? And how do you actually recruit the parents so that they actually do become involved with their children in this process? And in essence, they're supporting the teachers at the same time to involve the children with the pollinators, but also with the outdoors.
Right. The teachers tend to be very busy, as you can imagine, but the parents, usually some of them have a green thumb. They grew up doing some gardening, had a vegetable garden, maybe a garden around their house. So the garden can be a wonderful bridge, a shared activity between their children and themselves. And we think that's a very positive aspect. And then the garden, as I mentioned, can be a great outdoor classroom with the signage that's installed. And when it comes to milkweed, actually having the kids look for the larva under the leaves, bringing in that larva to raise until they emerge as butterflies and then releasing the butterflies.
Now, looking at the interaction between parents and teachers, what's happening there and why is that such a positive experience for both the teachers and the parents to have this open communications through the gardens, the pollinators, and their children?
Well, I think these days there just aren't enough shared activities, and this is pardon the pun, a natural one. You know, and it doesn't necessarily have to be done. It's not done during the school day, but it's when the parents are available. So that can be an after-school activity, or it can be a weekend activity. And you and I are Rotarians, and actually it's been a number of the Rotary clubs that have helped us with preparing the ground and overseeing the kids doing the planting and then the actual upkeep of the gardens, because you can plant a garden in one day, but the care is forever. And we encourage the formation of green teams between the parents and the children.
Now, looking at the children really getting up close and personal as far as the plants are concerned, how do you think that really helps to change them as far as their perspective? Because most of these children are either very densely packed suburban areas or, built conditions within density areas of the cities. So how does this interaction between the plant, the earth, and the child really change their lives?
Well, I think it's a new experience for many of them who maybe at home, even if they live in a house, just never got involved in the garden. So I think plants in green have a healing beneficial effect. And then the butterflies and the pollinators themselves kind of have their own effect. As a matter of fact, there's an expression about the butterfly effect or the monarch effect. There's something magical about these creatures.
Well, looking at the signage here, and also these are very mature plants that are growing up around the sign. I mean, this is just really a breathtaking scene as far as nature is concerned. And so looking at bringing in the greater community as well as the teachers, the parents, the children, why is the signage so important to everyone in the community?
Yeah. Well, these gardens are planted at schools. So in keeping with that, making the garden educational is great. And it should be educational not only for the children, the students at the school, but the parents. And it just gives that extra dimension. I mean, I think we all of us who are curious would like to get to know our native plants. And we only plant native perennials. And part of our strategy is actually do a plant sale and encourage the parents in their own backyard to plant a similar garden.
That's fantastic. And talk about signage. We have it here, but we're going to go out on this. We're just about out of time. What do you see for the growth and expansion as far as the communities and the schools being involved with the monarchs themselves and also with planting these different gardens, whether it's for the ornamentals or for the vegetables? And we got to be quick.
Okay. Well, we want to grow in the U.S. and Mexico. In the U.S., more and more schools already have gardens, but we can make them more educational. And we help in fundraising. We help through a cultural exchange, a communication. So getting multiple benefits for the school out of our program.
This is William Dent, Natural Partners, co-chair of the Trees for the Capital, as we create the Emerald Planet.